Hello, welcome to Oceanic Oracle. My name is Ari and today I'm showing you all the books I hauled in April. So, as I'm assuming most of you are aware, I am on a bit of a book buying ban. Physical book buying ban, really, but it didn't stop me from doing some damage this month. It just happened one day. I was wandering around town and the next moment I was going upstairs in the bookshop. I am actually doing quite well. I am doing an unhaul right now, so I'm going to be going through my bookshelves in a bit and showing you all the books that I am donating. I have hauled quite a few books. I have a few physical ones, but I also have quite a lot on my Kindle and I will be going through those. I'm going to split this video up. All the physical books that I've got are books from my YA section in my bookshop, in my local bookshop. So I'm going to be going through these first, and then the more adult romance stuff will be at the end. So feel free to jump around if you're more interested in YA fiction compared to historical romances and that sort of thing. Feel free to just stay for whatever section you want. Anyway, I guess without further ado, we should get started. The first book that I picked up in April was Skin of the Sea. Now, I have read this. This is by Natasha Bowen. This is a story about mermaids and it has West African mythology, so there's a real mix of things. I read this for my magical readathon. It was fantastic. If you are looking for a really good mermaid book with romance and like adventure and quests, you should definitely check this out. So this book follows Semidele. She's one of the Mamiwata, who are African mermaids. They collect souls who die at sea, and then they pass them on to the next life. This book was so good. So this also has historical fiction in it as well. So this book takes place in the 1400s and it discusses a bit of history that I need to educate myself further on. It talks about Africans being taken off by the Portuguese for slavery, and that plays a big part. Please be aware that some of this book might be a bit triggering for you. If you're interested in picking it up, make sure to check the trigger warnings before buying it. That's why I'm always glad when books have content warnings in the beginning, because then as a reader you can be informed and you're able to enjoy your books more. This book was so much fun. If you're looking for a book about mermaids that isn't like white, go and check it out. The sequel comes out in September and I'm so excited. I can't wait to pick that up. The next book that I picked up in April is This Woven Kingdom. Now, I am actually currently reading it, so this is by Taberah Mafi. Taberah Mafi wrote the Shatter Me series, and this book is her first book in this new trilogy. But this book follows a servant who she's serving in a noble house, Aliza, and she's actually the long lost heir to an ancient civilization, to an ancient kingdom, but she is constantly on the run because the current monarch, or the king, received a prophecy and he's out for her blood. This book also follows the king's grandson, and it's a story about forbidden romance. So one day the prince Cameron spots Aliza in a market, and he thinks there's something odd about her, so he goes and investigates, unknowingly basically causing her secret to be shown. This book has actually got me excited about fantasy again, and I've had a bit of a struggle with fantasy recently. But yes, I think if you're interested in looking for sort of like a YA fantasy romance, there are some dark moments in here. So you do get servants hitting each other, you do get discussions of war and things, but it's a fantasy book. It's so cool. I'm really enjoying the writing and it makes me want to maybe try out the Shatter Me series, but I'm going to be responsible. That's This Woven Kingdom. It's really good and I'm very excited. It was a surprise and I'm absolutely loving it. So moving on. The next physical book I picked up in April was Noughts and Crosses by Malorie Blackman. Now, this is a series that Fictional Fates talks about a lot. It's a story about two best friends. They're both from different races. And this is about a world being full of racism, fear, and mounting violence when noughts and crosses are basically enemies, but against all odds, these two friends fall in love, and they end up in terrible danger. It looks like it's a series, so you can see the series back here. I also picked this up because I saw in the Heartstopper TV show that came out that Isaac, who is one of the friends in the TV show, he is reading this. This has always drawn my eye, and I thought, why not pick it up? I'm interested to read this sort of thing and see what all the hype's about. So there we go. I picked this up. I believe this is like dystopian. I'm assuming it's dystopian. But yeah, it's got high praise and I'm looking forward to reading it. Who knows when it will actually happen, but hopefully I'll be able to pick it up soon. The next physical book that I picked up in April was Beasts of Prey. Now, this was talked about a lot last year, but finally my bookshop actually had it in stock, so I could pick it up. This is really, really cool. So one of our main characters, Kofi, hopefully I'm saying that correctly, Kofi, works at the night zoo to pay off her family's debts by taking care of these really dangerous animals, until one night where she mistakenly unleashes a wild and mysterious power which sends the night zoo up in flames. It also follows Ekon, I think I'm saying that correctly. If I'm not, I'm sorry. Ekon is destined to become an elite warrior like his father and his brother, until the fire at the night zoo. It throws him completely out of whack and he's cast out forever. So this story is about the two of them going into the jungle and to try and capture the legendary monster Shatani, which has plagued this world for centuries. This seems really cool. On the back it says that it's a brand new fantasy for fans of Ember in the Ashes, Shadow and Bone and The Gilded Ones. I've read all of these books and I absolutely adore them, so I'm sure this is going to be right up my alley. It's just so cool. It's very floppy for a UK paperback, which I'm very excited for. This is just what I need. It's what I feel like I should be reading in Hong Kong summer. So there we go. That is the next book that I got. And last, but certainly not least for the physical books, I picked up Solitaire by Alice Oseman. If you know Heartstopper, you'll know the main female lead in this book. This book follows Tori Spring, who is Charlie Spring's older sister. It's about her being alone, as the title suggests. Last year, apparently she had a lot of friends, but now she just has herself, Solitaire, and this guy called Michael Holden. I'm really interested. It says on the cover this is not a love story, and I'm looking forward to seeing how Tori is, because she is a character that has interested me whilst I read the Heartstopper comics, as well as seeing her in the TV show. But I am looking forward to picking this up. This is Alice Oseman's first novel. Their writing for me has always been good, so I have read Loveless and I Was Born for This. I have Radio Silence there, and this is my fourth novel in the collection. I really want to read the Nick and Charlie novella, but that's gonna have to wait for now. But yes, I picked this up. It's another thing that I picked up because of Heartstopper, the TV series, and I'm so excited. I can't wait to read this. Hopefully I'll be able to read this soon. I believe Tori is ace as well, so maybe I can read it for Pride Month. I've just been really in the moment. This was the last copy that they had in the bookshop and I'm just so excited. Hopefully I love this. That was the last physical book that I got in April. Welcome to the historical romance section. I'm just going to be talking about the historical romances that I picked up in April. All of these I have on my Kindle. I have read two different series in April that I picked that are new to me and that I picked up on the Kindle. The first one, I've talked about this in my wrap up, and these were The League of Extraordinary Gentlewomen, so Bringing Down the Duke, A Rogue of One's Own, and Portrait of a Scotsman. This is a series written by Evie Dunmore. They follow the suffragette movement in Britain in the sort of late Victorian times. They take place in 1880 and they follow the women while they fight for the Marriage Property Act to be abolished. If you do not know British history, the Marriage Property Act was only men could own property, and as soon as a woman married, she had no right to put anything in her name. Mind you, there was no property put in women's name anyway. The only way you could vote in the UK was if you owned property, and if you did not own property, like the women, then you just didn't count. So this story also follows the first women to be admitted into Oxford University. There are 2 different female colleges who have opened and who will accept female students, only their education is a bit different from their male counterparts. Like, they have to have private tutors who are comfortable teaching to women. But these are really fun historical romances. Portrait of a Scotsman is actually a Hades and Persephone retelling, and it's more accurate in regards to the myth than I think most others are. If you're interested in this sort of movement in the United Kingdom, if you're interested in reading about women's suffrage and what the suffragettes went through, definitely check them out. I think they're really well researched from what I know of the suffragettes movement, purely because we didn't study it at school here in Hong Kong, but I know in the UK I think they are taught in history. I'm not 100% sure, but anyway, there we go. I bought those 3 books on Kindle, and I also went and I got the Smythe Smith Quartet by Julia Quinn. So I read these at the end of the month. I was in a big historical fiction mood last month. I mean, who can blame me? So I have read all 4 of these. It starts off with Just Like Heaven. This follows Honoria Smythe Smith. If you've read the Bridgerton books, I mean, if you've read Romancing Mr. Bridgerton, it happens the same year that it's happening in tandem, basically. So events that go on in Romancing Mr. Bridgerton also are going on in this book, but this book follows Honoria Smythe Smith and her brother's really close friend Marcus. He's an earl and he owns property in northern Cambridgeshire, which is quite fun for me because my mum's family is from Cambridge and Cambridgeshire, so it's always fun for me to like read about stuff that happened. Marcus has been tasked by Honoria's brother Daniel. Honoria is the last Smythe Smith in her family to get married, and she plays violin in the Smythe Smith Quartet. A big thing in the Bridgerton books, as well as in this series, is that the Smythe Smith Quartet is pretty bad, as in no one knows why it's a tradition that kept going on, because everyone who played was awful. There are only very few in the family who are actually good at any instruments, and you have to put on a brave face or you can wallow in your own misery. It was so fun. This book also has the sort of like treating of illness. So Honoria and her mum actually treat an infected wound. I won't say more because I don't want to spoil anything. So there is a good amount of time spent at, as you can tell, Marcus's home, and it's just really fun. I really enjoyed this one, so like this is just really cool. And the next one in the series is A Night Like This, and this follows Honoria's brother Daniel and his love interest who came and replaced someone in the Smythe Smith Quartet. It's really difficult for them because they're both on the run from people. They're scared for their lives basically, and they're worried that if they get close to anyone new then they could end up in danger. It's sort of like a love at first sight thing for Daniel. Anne, who is the female love interest, is much more reserved, and she sort of like actually tries to think about things. Anne is a governess at one of Daniel's aunt's houses, so he ends up trailing along on her governess lessons. So she teaches the 3 youngest daughters in Daniel's aunt's house, and Daniel just follows along sort of like a lost puppy. You know, he really wants her attention, even though it's a bit improper and people sort of view it as like, oh, like you shouldn't be doing that. It was fun. Moving on. The next book in the series is The Sum of All Kisses. This book follows the pianist who called off ill in the first book at the Smythe Smith concert, Sarah. The man she stars against is sort of linked with Daniel going missing because he has been missing in the first book for 3 years. It's really cool. It's definitely a sort of like hate to love, and this book is really focused on learning to grow and to like value yourself and to value other people and looking for more than meets the eye. It was so good. I really enjoyed Sarah as a protagonist. I really liked her. I liked her wit. The writing in here, like the writing in all these books, is fantastic. And I think if you're interested in reading a sort of like hate to love story with a bit more depth, real issues under the surface, definitely check this one out. And last but definitely not least in this series and in this haul, The Secrets of Sir Richard Kenworthy. Now this follows the last girl in the Smythe-Smith quartet who performed, who isn't like a 16-year-old, so these girls are all in their 20s. This book follows Iris Smythe-Smith, who is one of the Smythe-Smith bouquet, as her family gets called. So the Smythe-Smiths have lots and lots of cousins, and every year the next cousin who can play the instrument gets pulled up, so long as the other members have already been married off. It's a really weird tradition. Iris captures the attention of Sir Richard Kenworthy. He has his reasons for coming down to London and finding a wife. This book really took me by surprise. I didn't expect it. I really enjoyed the sort of secret, and the fact that the secret didn't get told until like the last 25% of the way through was fantastic, and the fact that I just had no idea that this was coming. I really enjoyed the initial relationship between the two main leads, so Iris and Sir Richard, and it was really interesting. Again, it's sort of like, get your head out of your arse, we need to find another way to solve issues. Communication is key. Communication is always key in stuff like this. This was fun. This whole series, I gave them 4.5 stars each. So I really enjoyed them. I'll probably come back and do a more in-depth read, but that will be later on. And yeah, there we go. So those are all the books that I picked up in April. Yes, there are quite a few, but I am quite good. I actually purchased more books on my Kindle than I did physically, which I am very happy with, because that means that I do not have to pack a massive collection in a moving box. I can just read my Kindle on the airplane and I will have tons and tons of books. So yes, I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe if you want more bookish content. I hope you have a wonderful day or night, depending on when you're watching this. Stay safe, and I will see you in the next video. Bye guys.